Have you noticed that not every beautiful book is written by a poet, but every book written by a poet is beautiful? Well, I came to that conclusion recently and I thought I needed to share. And I did. I shared it with my good friend Ruben from To Read As It May Concern. And I think he agreed with me because we decided to take on this project together. And he's basically American lit royalty. His father is a poet. So if he says it's true, then it's probably true. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Linguist Library. Today, I am buzzing to share with you my favorite, most beautiful books available in the English language. I know it's a lot. It's a very ambitious claim, but I think that if you stick with me by the end of the video, you agree with me. So let's get to it. The first prompt is beauty in concept. So for this prompt, I chose Margaret Atwood, The Handmaid's Tale. This is actually a series. I have my other books from the series on my other shelf. But what I really love about this book, other than the concept, which of course is why I chose it for this prompt, is her use of colors. So Margaret Atwood is a poet, an acclaimed one at that, if you don't know. So she's probably one of my favorite Canadian authors of all time. And this series, she really uses symbolism so well. She uses colors so well. And if you know a little thing about me, you know that I love language. So I really love her prose. And dystopian is one of my favorite genres. And it doesn't really get that much claim for its prose. So when you get something like this, you must shout about it to the four winds all over the world. Everyone needs to know. Anyway, let me just read the blurb in the back so you have an idea of what I'm talking about. If you haven't read this, which I'm sure you have, or maybe watched the adaptation, which was also fantastic. But for those of you who haven't, in Margaret Atwood's dystopian future, environmental disasters and declining birth rates have led to a second American Civil War. The result is the rise of a regime. The result is the rise of the Republic of Gilead, a totalitarian regime that enforces rigid social rules and enslaves the few remaining fertile women. Offred is one of those, a handmaid bound to produce children for one of Gilead's commanders. Deprived of her husband, her child, her freedom, and even her own name, Offred clings to memories and her will to survive. At once a scathing satire, an ominous warning, and a tour de force of narrative suspense, The Handmaid's Tale is a modern classic, and it really is. For our second prompt, we chose beauty in an opening line, or beauty in an opening. So for this, I have Virginia Woolf. I love her poetry, and I love basically all of her novels. And I know that Ruben loves her too, so we had to call bids on her. And I got Mrs. Dalloway, which for me has the most beautiful opening line. So let me just read you the first line of this fabulous novel because it rolls off the tongue like honeydew. Mrs. Dalloway said she would buy the flowers herself. This feels like spring. I read this, I don't know, every other year. Virginia Woolf is one of those authors that really gains on a reread. So this for me was so much better the second time around. And then I read it a third time and I was like, okay, it just got better. But she's one of those. Her prose is lyrical, it's unique, it's complex at times. She will make you work for your money, but it is absolutely worth it in the end. I think that she becomes a bit more poetic in The Waves than she does here, but nonetheless, they are masterpieces. So for the third prompt, we chose beauty in characters. And for this one, I have something that I read recently. I had read her before, but I had never read Beloved. And I'm talking about, you can see that I read it recently because I started tabbing. I only started tapping this year and I'm addicted to it. It's great. I love it, especially because of the way that these books are just so tabbable. And now I can just quickly get to what the quote I wanted. I love it. So much better than just annotating. But anyway, I digress. So, one of the things that Toni Morrison does here, very similar to Margaret Atwood, she uses color for symbolism a lot. She uses a lot of euphemisms. She has so much fun playing with Beloved, the character who I'm not going to give too much away from. Well, maybe I guess I could. I don't know. This is so tragic. You need to be in the right mindset for it. But I was, because I've been reading a lot of really happy stuff. So I could handle it. I was in the right place for this. But her lyricism and her use of time, this is one of the things that poets do really well. And I think Toni Morrison really excels at slowing down time. So have you noticed how sometimes you see a beautiful image and you will notice how beautiful it is, but then you see it in slow-mo and you're like, oh, I didn't see that before. That's what she does. She slows down and she gives you so much by doing that, because there's so much beauty in her character, the resilience of her character. I could have chosen this for different prompts I'm looking at right now for the fourth one, for example, but we'll go with beauty in character, because the resilience and the strength shown by her characters are absolutely unforgettable. So, for the next prompt, beauty amongst pain, I have my most recent read, The Bell Jar. Now, I had read Sylvia Plath's poetry in the past, and I am a huge fan of her poetry. Ariel, Lady Lazarus, I can't decide which one I like best, but they are equally devastating, brutal, beautiful, and altogether unforgettable, again, for the lack of a better word. But it will live with you forever. They are the sort of books that leave a mark. In my opinion, Sylvia Plath really excels in her imagery, her visceral, brutal imagery. I thought that because this was going to be a novel, I thought it would be a little bit less personable and effective. Not so much effective, but I can't help but feel discombobulated after reading her. There's something so uneasy about her voice. It is so intense that I'm left stumbling for words and for air. I'm left breathless every time I think of her. And I just finished it like last week, and I have not recovered. Her gilded pen cut through my soul like an avocado, like a ripe avocado pear, if you will. And if you get the reference. But yeah, I'm sure you've read this book. If you haven't, please do. This is one of the most beautiful books I have read recently over the last 10 years, and it will stay with me. This is about Esther Greenwood, and it's set in New York City. It could easily have gone for the most beautiful first lines, but I'm going to go for beauty amidst pain, because this is a very heavy subject. These two both of them are really heavy. This one deals with depression, suicide. If you know anything about Sylvia Plath's life, you know that this was partially autobiographical, and her story is really tragic. But for me, she's one of the most influential poets of of the modern age. And now this novel for me lives right there. So for the next one, I do not have a physical copy of this book because I read it in Portuguese and I own the digital copy of it. My physical copy, I lent it to somebody years ago and I never got it back. But the one I read was a new edition. The one I have in digital form is a new edition from 2015. And this, I'm talking about the Book of Disquiet by Fernando Pessoa. Now, Fernando Pessoa, he's my favorite Portuguese author. In fact, there's a running joke in Portugal. Who are the best 4 Portuguese poets? The answer to that is Fernando Pessoa. That's because he has a lot of pen names, a lot of heteronyms. And this one is written by Bernardo Soares, who is considered a semi-heteronym because it is very close to Fernando Pessoa's real life, actual life. So this is a little bit of an autobiography of Bernardo Soares, who is the closest persona when we talk about Fernando Pessoa. He had over 70 personas that he created NATO charts for, stories, gave them they were basically characters, really well-developed characters that he chose to write about and to write as if they were writing. But it's all him. It's all Fernando Pessoa. And the thing about this book, Fernando Pessoa published a little bit of his poetry while he was still alive, and I think that he edited excuse me. I'm sorry. I think he edited Mensagem, The Message, one of his collections, but this one was not edited. And this one was put together by a lot of people who managed his estate. And the interesting thing about Fernando Pessoa was basically the whole thing. He's a very interesting character, but he was a translator and he spoke English and wrote in English. And so some of his stuff is actually written in English, some of his chronicles, some of his short stories. This book specifically, which is the most famous one in English right now, in my to my knowledge, the Book of Disquiet, is the one I'm going to recommend specifically for that reason, because it's just easier to get, is by Fernando Pessoa, but it's written technically by Bernardo Soares. So this is a philosophy book at the end of the day. It is very lyrical, but because of Fernando Pessoa's mastery when it comes to language, he's really a wordsmith. And I think that he uses that concept and develops it. This is really a book about writing. So on the craft of writing, he really elevates the craft of writing. Some of his entries are so out of the box that you might not want to sit and read this book all at once. I'm a really fast reader, but when I'm reading Fernando Pessoa, I pace myself. And because I want to savor him. I want to savor his prose, which lives on the cusp of poetry. But yeah, there's not really a way to describe this book. It's not really a plot book per se. But if you love beautiful things, if you love the beauty of life, and if you love slow motion pictures, you're going to like this book. So for the next prompt, which is Beauty in Place. Oh, this is one of my books. This is one of the oldest books I've got. And I need to buy a new copy of it. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. I'm talking about Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. So one thing about Fernando Pessoa is that, I don't know if you noticed, but if you've been paying attention, you saw that that's my name. It's not my real name. This is an homage to Fernando Pessoa because he's one of my all-time favorites. And the little caveat that perhaps you don't know if you don't speak Portuguese, but Pessoa means person. So it is very vague and very wholesome at the same time, because he's trying to be every person. And that's his name, Pessoa. And that's my chosen pen name too. So now you know. If you didn't know, I decided to share. Okay, so about Emily Bronte. Emily Bronte is one of my favorite English poets. Her poetry is haunting, very much like this novel. And it is, this is probably one of the oldest books in this list. This is probably one of the oldest books on this list. So the prose is very Victorian. This is from the time when people still used the word ejaculate in prose for conversation. But you can't help but notice that she's a poet. So Bronte, I think that she's a better poet than a novelist, to be honest, Emily Bronte. I love this novel, of course, but I love her poetry even more. And this describes the Yorkshire moors in such an exquisite way that I had to go there and check it out for myself. So, Beauty in Place, Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I'm so sad that this video is coming to an end. I could talk about this all day. I really, really could. I love this topic. I love language and I love beautiful prose. Oh my goodness. All right. So the next two books I also only have in digital form. Beauty in Time is prompt number 7. And this one is probably one of my latest, yes, one of the newest books on this list. On Earth, We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. Ocean Vuong is a poet, and this book is a letter to a mother who cannot read. So he is also very much like Toni Morrison. He's very good at slowing down time and making you really feel the story in the pace that he wants you to. He also has a beautiful control of verbal tense. So he would change from the present to the past to make sure that you're in the scene, places you there. I really loved his prose. Of course, the story is so beautiful, but I am talking about this specifically because of the beauty of the language. So the way that he whiplashes you with all of his capture of time really is one of the most beautiful books that I've read that's been published recently, and I thoroughly recommend. Beauty in Time. On Earth, We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. So for the last prompt, which is Beauty in Catharsis, I have a nonfiction. So Maya Angelou is one of my all-time favorite poets, American poets, and this is actually a memoir, one of her last memoirs that she wrote about her relationship with her mother. And for me, this was very cathartic when I read it. I don't know if I was coming of age, but I guess you could say I was when I read this, and it impacted me very much. It really made me understand my mother and look at her through different lenses. And this could have easily gone under the Beauty in Time prompt because of how she's talking about a very large period of time from her life and her mother's life. And the catharsis of this cannot be underestimated, especially when it comes to that mother-daughter relationship. So I thoroughly recommend. I am so happy to have had Ruben join me in this project. I am so stoked to watch everyone's recommendation. I am tagging a ton of people. But there's one person that I want to shout out because he is a poet and he and I have been talking about poetry a lot lately on BookTube. I want to recommend Philip's channel. His handle is A Poet Reads to Write. He is an Australian poet, and I love him. I love his content, and I wanted to give him a shout out. But I am tagging a ton of people who are extraordinary, and I want to hear their recommendations. So Stephanie, David, Joe, Albert, Linda, Paula. All right. I think that's it for today. I have a lot more that I want to talk about, I am sure. I could talk about these guys forever. I could talk about their prose style forever. I could talk about their phonetic devices, their use of assonance and just repetition. I cannot recommend these books enough. They are beautiful. They are. Do yourself a favor and read them. I'm going to say all of that because I truly mean it. Okay? But all right. So I think I better let you go. Thank you so much for staying until the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.